The Indian economy grew under the British, and the Indian economy grew more under the British than China. But the rest of the world economy grew bigger and faster than India. And that's the fault of the Indians, not the fault of the British. Here is actual annualized average growth rate of the Indian, European, UK, and Chinese economies between 1858 and 1947. India 1.09%. Europe 1.67%. UK 1.38%. China 0.96%. It is important to note that these are just averages, and the actual growth rate varied from year to year. Additionally, the data for China is less reliable than the data for Europe and the UK. As you can see, all three economies experienced significant growth during the period in question, but the growth rate in Europe and the UK was generally higher than the growth rate in China or India. This is likely due to a number of factors, including the earlier industrialization of Europe and the UK, as well as the more favorable political and economic environment in those countries. It is also worth noting that the growth rate of all economies slowed significantly after the Great Depression of the 1930s. This was due to a number of factors, including the collapse of international trade and investment, as well as the outbreak of World War II. As you can see, India's GDP growth rate was generally lower than the growth rate of Europe, the UK, and China during this period. This is likely due to a number of factors, including the British colonial rule, which stifled economic development in India. It is also important to note that India's population grew rapidly during this period, which limited economic growth per capita. To calculate the total growth in economic output for each of the four countries, Europe, the UK, China, and India, between 1858 and 1947, you can use the provided annual average economy growth rates and calculate the cumulative effect over the specified periods. India 97%. Europe 149%. UK 123%. China 85%. So, based on these calculations, Europe had the highest total economic growth of approximately 149%, and the UK had the second highest total economic growth of approximately 123%. India had a total growth of approximately 97%, and China had the lowest total economic growth of approximately 85% between 1858 and 1947. So the Indian economy grew under the British, but the rest of the world economy grew bigger and faster, and that's not the fault of the British, that's the fault of Indians.